She sat there with us and was just real quiet.
Just her being there for me and for only me made all the difference in the world.
The trauma intervention programs started in 1985 in San Diego. And in 1991, they received the Innovations Award from Harvard University, and the Ford Foundation awarded them a $100,000 grant to go nationwide. And at that time, Portland was picked to be a target city to replicate the program. And since that time, we've spread to hundreds of cities across the United States.
The easiest way to describe it is that I am available to respond to anybody that's been affected by a trauma or a traumatic incident in their life, and we're called by first responders, by hospitals, by just about anybody that knows that we exist to help, again, folks that have been affected by a traumatic incident.
After our job is typically done, which is taking care of the imminent issue and the immediate needs of the individual, there's that emotional needs and traumatic needs that we've always felt bad about leaving behind. TIP volunteers coming on the scene become part of that team in solving the individual's problem and making sure that those emotional issues are addressed so we can leave the scene.
When volunteers arrive on scene, they arrive quickly, they're dressed professionally, and they're trained to work right alongside those emergency responders and have become an appreciated and well-respected part of the team.
So what we found is with the trauma intervention program and their quick response to the scene, it allows the firefighters to feel very comfortable turning the scene over to these trained professionals, if you will, volunteers, and it has, in fact, I'm convinced, prevented that secondary injury to our citizens and those that have experienced a very traumatic event.
So when you arrive, how can you identify command? Ask a firefighter. Helmet colors are a big indicator for us.
Our volunteers across the United States are all well-trained, background-checked, fingerprinted citizens. So the emergency responders know that when they call for a TIP volunteer, it is an okay, well-trained citizen to have in someone else's home or on their scene. The teens are trained the exact same way as the adults, and they have to go through several hours of a training academy in order to pass on to graduation.
They're a very integral part of what the job that we do. Anytime there's a traumatic incident, whether it's a motor vehicle accident, a death, serious injury, police, fire, medical can all call TIP volunteers, have them come out to the scene. They can attend to the grieving parties on the scene, which allow all emergency service workers to deal with the task at hand. And it's not trying to divide our time and our attention where we don't have the ability to focus on the grieving parties and try to do our job at the same time. So they're a tremendous asset in that respect.
With TIP, the experiences that come to mind most often are those that probably are most frequent, and that is natural death of a friend, relative, spouse. It happens all the time, but it's something that people aren't prepared for. Even if it is an elderly person or someone who is possibly expected to pass away, it's still a traumatic event, and that happens continually. Those are the times you just feel like you've done your job by leaving the scene in capable hands of a volunteer who can deal with the emotional side of that event.
It can range from anything from just being there to hold somebody's hand to helping a family decide on what type of funeral arrangements they want to have their loved one have, or it could be anything from helping people set up telephone calls so that they can notify next of kin or additional family members about, to notify them about the death or the tragedy. It can be, washing people's dishes, getting them a drink of water. So it really runs the gamut of assistance that we provide. It's not just one or two things. It can be anything.
We'd been living with our dealer and not bathing and just going out making money and buying the drugs and then just getting high, and we weren't worried about anything else. We weren't concerned about anything else.
In 1994, after struggling to overcome an addiction to heroin, Heather Davis committed suicide. Her sister, Sarah Martell, found her. A TIP volunteer arrived soon after the paramedics.
For me, the reality of the situation was different than what it really was. I insisted that my sister had been murdered when in actuality it had been a suicide. The other thing that the TIP volunteer had to deal with was me insisting that my mom was going to kill me when she got there. So for half an hour, this poor gal had to deal with just my emotion of not only losing my sister, but that we're going to have trouble when my mom gets there, which did not happen, thankfully.
I so appreciated, I don't know if it's her experience, her wisdom. She knew to not offer all these platitudes and condolences like, oh, you know, God works in mysterious ways, and someday this will all make sense to you, and just all the things people think they need to say to make you feel better. She didn't say any of that. She just was quiet and let us go through what we needed to go through, and was just such a calming influence.
Everybody wanted something from me. I believe I was interviewed 3 different times by different people trying to get my story, and the TIP volunteer was the one person that didn't ask anything of me. She was just there to help me. Just her being there for me and for only me made all the difference in the world.
The biggest case to me are the teen suicides, and not only were the adult TIP volunteers helpful, but the teen TIP volunteers were extremely helpful, not only at the scene but also dealing with kids at school you know, the week following or so.
One of my most memorable calls was a teen whose mother had died, and he was not much older than me, and we were perfect strangers, and he totally opened up and was sharing all these like personal moments that he had had with his mother, and I just felt so privileged to have a perfect stranger share all of this like meaningful memories with me. And it was pretty intense, I guess, and I felt really privileged.
I just think we're really grateful to have, you know, she was my angel coming in, trying to, you know, keep me together enough to get through that day, and I just can't say enough for this program.
Again, you know, when we get those letters from clients, they always call us their angels, and I think that just really sums up what TIP is all about, that we're kind of those invisible angels behind the scene to help folks through those first couple hours.